Oh, okay. So I work at the Bermuda Eye Institute for Dr. Tay Botchaway, and we have an office here in Point Finger, and we also have one on Front, and I was walking between the two offices to meet him for a meeting. I was walking down Front Street on the side of the accident. I had gotten about halfway through the gas station. Now, I had my headphones on, so I didn't hear it, but I saw something in the distance, and the next thing I know, as soon as the collision happened, the telephone wires and transformers around me started falling to the ground.
So what did you think was going on?
I didn't know. At first I thought maybe there was an earthquake. That's the first thing that came into my mind, is things are falling off the telephone poles. So I just started running because the wires were literally whizzing right past me, and I could hear them crackling despite having my headphones on. So I started to run, and about 50 feet I saw the bus. Now,
did you hear people screaming?
That's the first thing. As soon as I saw the bus, I heard people screaming, and the overwhelming thing I heard is, there's children on the bus. People were screaming, there's children on the bus. So I started running towards the bus, which was just covered in wires going off. You could just hear them crackling. And I actually heard people behind me yelling, don't go near it, don't go near it. And I wish I could say it was long and thought out, but the only thought I had is, I don't know if there's gasoline leaking, I don't know if this transformer is going to set the bus on fire. I could recognize immediately that the bus door was pinned against the building, so they could not get out. So I started asking them if there was emergency exit. Everyone said no. I started pulling windows down around the bus, but they would only come down halfway.
Now, was anyone assisting you at this point?
The people inside the bus were trying to find a way out. The bus driver, as far as I know, was not helping.
Do you recall her state?
Yes, but I'll get to that if you want. So they finally found a window that would go down about 3/4 of the way, but it was on the damaged side of the bus, which means I actually had to go through. On the back of the bus was a ton of wires sparking, and the only way for me to get there was to maneuver through the wires. So I actually had to go through the wires to get around there to the window.
The wires were around the bus, so then what happened next?
So I went through the wires and I went to the window they were able to get 3/4 down. At this point, I was the only one there. And they started passing me the children out the window.
Now, what were the children like?
Freaking out.
Understandable.
A lot of them were bloodied on their mouths. I guess when they lunged forward because of the accident, a lot of them had blood on their mouths. They were very panicked, and the worst part about it wasn't getting them out of the bus, because they were all about 4 or 5 years old. They were very light, and I'm pretty tall. I actually had to reach up into the window, basically extend my arms to get the children. But as soon as I put them down on the ground, they wanted to take off and get as far away from the bus as possible. But there was all these wires everywhere that I actually had to hold a couple kids against the wall while I was taking more down, because I couldn't explain to them
why they couldn't
run.
Now, are you a parent?
No.
So, but yet instinctively, you just jumped in.
I just knew that they were running towards the wires, and I actually had to go grab one kid that got about 10 feet away and just kind of hold him because they were upset. After I got about 3 or 4 kids out, another gentleman came. I wish I knew his name, but I don't. And he started to escort the kids to a safe area. I just started pulling them out, handing them to him, and he took care of that. After we got, if not all, but most of the kids out, then other people started coming. Thankfully, because we started taking the adults out, which was much harder, obviously, because they had to fit through the window. And even so, I was the only one that could really grip them because they were so high up. I'm 6'3", so I'm pretty tall. Everybody else was shorter. So I kind of guided them into the crowd a little bit. The elderly people were the hardest, just because they literally couldn't get themselves through the window. So the people actually inside the bus actually started helping hand them to me, which was really amazing. That because they could have got it off before the elderly lady, but they didn't. They waited for the elderly people, and they waited to help, which is amazing considering a lot of them still had children by themselves on the ground. So we got the elderly people out of the bus, and then I helped the last couple people get out of the bus. By that point, there was a good 6 or 8 of us, so it was much easier at that point. Once everyone was off, the bus driver was still left, and I started yelling at her or trying to talk to her through the window. She was still by the driver's. She was still by the steering wheel.
The bus driver was near the steering wheel.
Still near the steering wheel.
Was she in shock?
I believe she must have been. I started trying to reason with her and trying to get her off the bus, but she just kept saying, "I need to wait for them, I need to wait for them." I'm guessing she was just in shock, and there was no way to force her to go through the window because there was no one left in the bus at that point. And the police showed up pretty much right after that.
So you've only been on the island for 5 weeks.
Yeah.
How does it feel that you played such an important role today?
I'm coming from New York City. It's supposed to be nice and quiet here. I don't know. I wish I could tell you some great meaning behind it, but truthfully, I just saw people who I was scared was in trouble, and I just could. If that bus went on fire and they were trapped in there, I couldn't.
I was going to say, in reflection, do you realize that you potentially put yourself in danger? How do you feel that
people were yelling at me that I was? There's other people that saw it, and were yelling at me, "Don't go near it." But I heard the people. Maybe I'm the only one that heard the people yelling, "There's kids in here! There's kids in here!" Because I was the closest, and I didn't even give it a second.